Hello, friends. So after the Articles of Confederation were found to be not powerful enough to keep our nation working properly, our newly formed United States of America, the Articles of Confederation were not allowing the national government to collect taxes. So there wasn't any power there, and there wasn't enough cohesiveness to actually make the government work. And so the Constitutional Convention was called to create the Constitution, which would decide what our country would be like in the future. And so each of the 13 states at the time sent delegates to discuss the issues. And I have here, you can see all these dudes. They were all white dudes that came to the convention because, you know, sexist, racist time they were living in. I'm going to go through just a few of the profiles. Before I do, check out here what the three main points that they were kind of arguing about and trying to figure out the best way forward were. Number one, how should states be represented in the national legislature? Would it be by population, by just having the same number of representatives per state, or a combination of both? Because like you can imagine, the big states wanted to do it by population. They had more people, they wanted to be represented more. But the small states, they didn't want their state to get swallowed up by these giant population centers. So they wanted that one. And then the second point of contention was, how should enslaved people be counted when finding the population of a state? Now, I am sad to say that this was even a part of the process because there should be no enslaved people. They ended with something called the 3/5 Compromise. We'll talk about that in class. And it's, I don't know, just sad. The last thing they wanted to figure out together was, how should the national executive, who they came to call the president later on, be elected? And that was a big deal, how to do that. So I'm going to look at these profiles here. So this first guy is Alexander Hamilton. And Alexander Hamilton, there he is. He was born in 1757 in the British West Indies. As a youth, he showed great intelligence and talent. He lived with his mother, and after she died, people on his island raised money to send him to school in New York. However, his college studies were interrupted by the Revolution. Although he was not yet 20 years old, he wrote several pamphlets to support the patriot cause. When war broke out, he became an army officer and quickly rose to become an assistant to General George Washington. After the war, he became a lawyer, and he was elected for the Continental Congress and also served in the state legislature. He's charming, passionate, ambitious. He's a leading supporter of a strong central government and a powerful nation. So he believed that the state should be represented in the national legislature based on their population. And guess what? He was from a large state. He was from New York. And he thinks the legislature should have two houses, so the both situation. And then he believed the executive should be chosen by electors selected by the people. So the people shouldn't vote directly, he thinks. He thinks there should be electors. So the next person I'm going to talk about is Benjamin Franklin. So Benjamin Franklin was born in Boston in 1706. So he was one of the oldest ones at this point in time. Like, think about this. Like, it's almost the end of the century. 1706, he was born. At 17, he moved to Philadelphia, where he published the Pennsylvania Gazette and Poor Richard's Almanac. He became known for starting libraries, schools, and hospitals, and also achieved fame as a scientist and inventor. Before the Revolution, he served in Pennsylvania's legislature and represented Pennsylvania and other colonies to the British government in London. After returning to Philadelphia, he served in the Continental Congress, helped draft the Declaration of Independence, and became the new nation's Postmaster General. As a representative to France, he helped convince the French government to support the revolution. So he had a big part in making the revolution succeed. In 1785, he became president of the Supreme Executive Council of Pennsylvania. So despite his advanced age and poor health, he faithfully attended sessions of the Constitutional Convention. His wisdom, humor, and calming influence helped delegates resolve bitter disagreements. So what he thought was that that states should be represented in the national legislature based on their population, because he was from Pennsylvania, a large state. And he believed that the national executive, or the president, should be elected directly by the people. So he didn't agree with Hamilton about that. He thinks people should be able to vote directly to elect their president. So those are two of the delegates. Let's take a look at some others in a moment.